matšpalli paneb mängu Unibet, mängijatelt mängijatele.
Tere, kallid tennissõbrad! Eesti tennisemaastikul puhuvad huvitavad tuuled. Nagu eilsest Eesti Päevalehest võis lugeda, oleme juurde saamas uue naismängija, 23-aastase andeka paarismängija Ingrid Neeli või ameerikapäraselt Ingrid Neel. Neel hoiab hetkel paarismängu maailma edetabelis 113. kohta, kuid on parimatel päevadel asunud ka 77. tabelireal. Eesti tennisenaiskonda kutsus Neeli esindama naiskonna kapten Märten Tamla, kes kohtus Ingridiga eelmisel aastal Clevelandi turniiril, kus ta abistas meie esireketit Anett Kontaveiti. Tänane matšpalli podcast erineb veidi tavapärasest. Ei ole me täna stuudios ning minuga ei ole ka Riho Kallust. Küll aga pakun ma kuulamiseks intervjuud uue Eesti kodanikuga, eelmise aasta veebruarist alates Eesti passi omava Ingrid Neeliga. Alustuseks küsisin Ingridilt, kui palju ta ennast eestlasena tunneb ning kuidas ta oma päritolu tähtsustab. Olgu hoiatatud, et intervjuu toimus inglise keeles.
Yes, well, I have strong feelings about my Estonian heritage. I'm proud of it, and it is also very meaningful to our family. Of course, I am an American, but I am also an Estonian. And, you know, I don't know how much history that your readers would want to know, but my grandmother was, you know, forced out of her homeland of Estonia during World War II as a child, and the United States offered her freedom, but we are, you know, she's so, since I was young, you know, she talks about it and she goes and visits like very, very often, and we're gonna, you know, see our family who still live there in Tallinn. And to get this, you know, opportunity to play for Estonia and be a citizen is a dream come true, honestly, and an honor. Yeah.
Eesti passi sai Ingrid kätte 2021. aasta veebruaris, olles seda New Yorgi Eesti konsulaadis taotlemas käinud koos isa Brianiga, kellest on samuti saanud Eesti kodanik. Järgnevalt kirjeldab Neel, miks ta endale Eesti passi soovis.
Estonian federation reached out to me and asked, you know, if I would be interested, and that is part of the reason that I, you know, got my citizenship, because I thought in the back of my mind, I was like, one day I would really like to give myself this opportunity if it could ever work out. And yeah, so they asked me, and they thought, you know, it was probably a long shot, but I had already been kind of like thinking it and had it in my heart to do it. And so I didn't take long for me to, you know, say I want to make this decision and do it for good. Yeah.
Lisaks Eesti tennisenaiskonnale Fed Cupil võib Ingrid Neel tulevikus potentsiaalselt esindada ka Eestit olümpiamängudel. Ingrid ise ütleb, et see oleks talle ülimalt suur au.
Yes. I already used the word honor, but that would be probably the ultimate. And, you know, if I'm so lucky to be chosen and to qualify for that, it would just be what a cool experience. And I will do, you know, everything I can to, you know, make sure my tennis is there and that I will represent Estonia in the best way possible as a player and also, you know, with my character. So.
Küsisin Ingridilt, kuidas tema vanema reageeris, kui ta talle Eesti Tenniseliidu pakkumisest rääkis. Vanema nimi muuses on samuti Ingrid, neiupõlve nimega Vaga.
Yeah, she was one of the first people that, besides my mom and dad, when I asked them, you know, what they thought, she was the third person, and she was very happy. She's like, wow, that would be, she was a little shocked that I was even pursuing it, because she had always said oh, you know, say hi to the Estonian players and introduce yourself, because anytime you see an Estonian, you know, it's kind of rare thing. But she was just very happy and thought that was extremely nice that I was, considering it. And then I said, I mean, I've almost fully made my decision. And I'm just glad that she was very supportive of it, as I knew she would be. And I think, as it's, and I haven't even been able to, play for them yet. So that's just this is just the beginning. I think the, excitement will only grow from here with the experience I have during my career playing for Estonia.
Can you speak in Estonian?
I can say hi, tere, but that's about it. So when I told them, and I pretty much, I said, I want to switch. So tell me what I need to do and I'll wait, for, formalizing what I, have to do. And I looked up, I was like, okay, I really should start speaking the language. My grandmother did not teach me. So I wish I could just take, the part of her brain that knows the language, but I can't. I'd have to learn it. And I was looking up online and it said it's one of the more difficult languages to speak. I always knew that because it's very, very unique. There's not many like it, but look, I have tennis right now and I don't have much else. So I think it'd be a perfect thing to just go full on learning the language. I think that would be a good challenge and very, very useful and something fulfilling for me. So I think I'm gonna, commit to it. And I know my accent won't be very good, but maybe I'll get by.
Oma vanaema eluloo ja saatuse pärast jälgib Ingrid hoopis teise pilguga kui tavalised ameeriklased ka käimasolevat Ukraina sõda. Tema vanaema oli sunnitud keset teist maailmasõda 1944. aastal Saaremaalt põgenema, et tema pere ei tabaks samasugune saatus nagu paraku juba küüditatud lähedasi sugulasi. Ingrid Vaga oli emaga sünnikodust lahkudes vaid 3-aastane, kaasas ka 1-aastane õde ja 6-aastane vend. Pereisa jäi olude sunnil Eestisse ja liitus teistega alles ligi 20 aastat hiljem.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like in a sense of a deja vu. And although like the last one, am I personally there? I'm not, but I feel very, I have it. So my family was affected, and now like you just said, millions of people, millions of families, their lives are completely, changed, ended, whatever it is. And it's unspeakable. And as much as you try to go on, I can tell that, it's a part of my grandmother's life that will never, it's imprinted on her, So, and that's going to be the case going forward for so many Ukrainians. And, I really hope, and being, maybe spending more time in Estonia, being close, representing Estonia, I think it'll even bring me closer to this situation because, you can isolate yourself, but I feel like that's not exactly, for me, tennis is so global and I have, these roots in Europe and specifically Estonia. It hits very close to home for me.
Ingridil on selja taga väga edukas juunioride karjäär, mille tipus jõudis ta 2015. aastal maailma edetabelis 27. kohale ja mängis maineka noorteturniiri Orange Bowli U18 tüdrukute finaalis hilisema Australian Openi võitja Sofia Keniniga. Aga kuulame lühikokkuvõtet Ingridi profitennisistiks sirgumisest tema enda sõnade läbi.
Well, from age 4, I picked up the racket and did some other sports as well. My mom just wanted me to, get into some sport, and I took a liking to tennis. And my mom played a little recreationally, nothing that serious. her goal was for me to beat her one day, and I accomplished that when I was 10. So I would say, I guess, success story there. But no, it was, I found she set me up. So I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota. That's where a lot of Scandinavians live, but also where my grandmother and grandfather worked. So that's where my dad is from. And we found a coach at a local tennis club there. My mom just wanted to make sure I had the fundamentals and, you know, go from there. And my coach made it so fun, and I loved it. And I especially loved playing tournaments. So as many as I could I started my first tournament when I was 6, and that was my development. You know, many people, they wait until they play a tournament, but for me, it was like the competition was the most fun, and the way that I wanted to like challenge myself. Like if I lost, it didn't discourage me. It actually made me just want to keep going so I could, you know, play those same people and do better next time. So I got my start. It's called the Little Mo tournaments, MO, but these were like in the United States, a very big thing for kids under 10 to play. And it was just a beautiful experience as a kid. I even went to France when I was 8 and 10 to play an international tournament of those age categories in the kids. It was like a kids cup, and also the Smirkfa Bowl. I don't know if it's a European thing, but it was like a United States competing against the Europeans. So I got many opportunities as a kid, you know, to do things that not many kids my age, their parents probably wouldn't have taken them to. And then when I was 14, I was offered a scholarship to the Bolletary Tennis Academy, IMG, in Bradenton, Florida. And at about age 11, my dad asked a favor of a mutual friend of Nick Bolletary if he would take a look at me. And this was a Minnesotan connection. And Nick said, you know, I see hundreds, if not thousands, you know, of kids and their parents saying this is the next tennis star. Like, would you watch, you know, my kid play? And the guy was like, no, I know that, but just give it a chance. So Nick did. And we spent about more than an hour on court that first time. And he basically said, you know, anytime you want to come train here, you're welcome. So I would go there periodically from age like 11 to 14, a couple times a year. And it's so different from my training in Minnesota because everyone, you know, you're competing against people your age, whereas in Minnesota, a lot of them were older boys because that was the you know, nature of the competition. So I would go to Florida for a few weeks at a time, come back, and I would just be like so, you know, supercharged to, you know, play and this kind of thing. So it was really good for me. And the outside tennis was also nice because I spent so many winters, you know, playing indoors. But and then by 14, you know, this opportunity to train there full time, or at least during the entire school year, was there. And we just knew, like I knew, my parents knew that you can't pass up something like this opportunity and generosity that they were showing. So we all pretty much relocated. My dad stayed working part of the time in Minnesota and in Florida remotely, but so I have a brother who's 3 years younger and a sister who's 10 years younger than me. So he's in the middle, and because family, you know, is very important to us, and I didn't want to be sent there alone. I still wanted to have like a normal, you know, childhood with my siblings and my parents. So we spent the first 9 months there, and it was amazing. Just everything I could have asked for and more. So we ended up staying 3 more full years, almost 4. And through there, I was playing like ITF, you know, junior tournaments. I made the US Open and Wimbledon. I made the finals of the prestigious like Orange Bowl 18s tournament, and I won my first 10K ITF Pro Circuit tournament, and multiple doubles titles, like from 10 to 50Ks. So it was really, I can't think of a better way to continue my development than being there. And then I went to college, University of Florida, for a semester. And that was, the decision was, do you go professional right away, or do you go to college? And I really said, I don't want to look back and think of, what could have been. And I think if you're at that time, I wasn't 150% ready to go full on the tour. So I decided I'm going to give myself time. And then I realized it took about, the 5 months that I was there, but I said, I do miss playing on the tour, and I want to do this for my career. So I decided at age, I think I was about 18, 19, to go for it. And through there, it's completely different. You're the nature of it. You're by yourself a lot of times. Sometimes I had a coach, but a lot of times I didn't, for the most part. And, you're just learning and growing and trying to improve. And I was playing singles and doubles at the time, but my doubles was going much better than my singles. And then I took it maybe like three years or so. And I said, I feel like I'm close. I'm like a good, 6 months, a year away from making the Grand Slams in doubles. And I really think that I can be top 20 in the world in doubles, but for singles, I'm not so sure. And that's when I really committed and decided to go for the doubles. And last year, I broke the top 100, and I made Wimbledon and US Open and the Australian Open this year. So already things are, coming to fruition, but I'm not near done yet. And I'm, just looking to be the best I can be. And hopefully that's at the top of the game one day in doubles. I still really enjoy it. And I'm looking to, constantly improve. And it's given me, the places I've been able to travel, the people I've been able to meet, the experiences I've had, there's nothing like it. So if my journey had to end tomorrow, I would still be very grateful, but hopefully I'm just at the beginning.
Nii noores eas puhtalt ainult paarismängule keskendumine pole tennisemaailmas sugugi tavapärane nähtus. Küsisin Ingridilt, mis tema arvab, miks ei julge noored mängijad paarismängu juba varakult tõsisemalt kätte võtta, kuigi ka selles mänguliigis on võimalik teha väga korralikku karjääri.
I think the main reason is you play your whole life, and when you say like I want to be a professional tennis player, you have in your mind that it's for singles. And what I fell in love with the sport was the individuality of it and the uniqueness, and that's being out there alone by yourself. Of course it has, it can be lonely and challenging, but that's what made it so rewarding. And I had a lot of difficulty, I have so much support, like from my family and from my, let's say team, whoever that is at the time. It could be, former coaches that I'm still close with, or current coaches or whatever, and, people that I train with. And a lot of them were pushing me into doubles, but I wasn't fully there. In my heart, I was like, no, I don't want to give up on my dream was singles, and I've evolved that thinking, I would say, because I realized that it is, I've played team events, and that's also why I'm really looking forward to playing the Fed Cup, because it will give me another opportunity to do that. And the camaraderie, like I did that in college, I did that in, high school, some junior team events, but that's actually, tennis doesn't have to be purely like individual. There's doubles. Maybe a lot of people say it's more fun, and yes, that's the case, and maybe easier because it's less stressful. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because before, I would say, oh, I don't like coaching in tennis, or, I want everything to be more traditional, but I've really come to change that, just me living this new thing where I guess I am, I consider myself a doubles player or doubles specialist, and singles is a bonus if I get to play, but it's definitely not even close to my priority anymore. And I still think about, like, will I ever get back into it? And maybe, because I am considered still, even though maybe I feel like I've been doing this a very long time, young in the tennis world, or maybe middle age, but for me, it was more like, why am I playing? Well, I want to be at the biggest stage. Like, yes, I want to be at that court and in this tournament, and instead of playing, just a small event. And that really was the deal breaker for me. And I knew that I could do it. It was almost like the success that I could have could be at the top, where singles, I guess I lost that, belief a little bit. And also financially, if you are in the top 80, 70, especially 50 in doubles, you're making all the slams, you're making the premieres, it's a good living. And if you're not 150 or 100 in singles, where you're like main draw singles, it's a little, I would say it's worse financially than the top 50 in doubles. And I was like, one, I'm sure I can do, or at least I believe I can, and the other one is less so. And
suuremate ja väiksemate võistluste matšpalle vaata Unibet TV-s, kus sind ootab aastas ligimale 100 000 tasuta otseülekannet. Unibet, mängijatelt mängijatele.
Ingrid treenib päevas 3 tundi puhtalt paarismängu suunitlusega. Tennisetreenerit tal tuuri peal kaasas ei ole, küll aga on ta kasutanud erinevate löögipartnerite abi, kes valdavalt on tema kodukoha Jacksonville'i ülikooli lõpetanud meesmängijad. Kuidas paarismängija treenib, räägib Ingrid kohe lähemalt.
The way you practice, which is the way I practice now, is completely different. The way you view things. And if you want to be the absolute best doubles player that you can be, you do have to work on skills that you don't work on when you're practicing for singles. But I think most singles players, especially if they are good, they just take what they have and they play their games in the doubles. And a lot of times it works well, right? Like we see a lot of the singles players who are just generally, they're just such good tennis players that it can translate, and they can outserve and they can out hit, and they do really well in doubles. But for me, I have other parts of my game that I utilize. Maybe it's more the net play and the strategy, because I'm, if I was the best ground stroker or the best server, I probably would be better in singles, but I have other skills that just translate to doubles. And I think that's why it went better. And I work on, 3 hours a day, it's only geared toward doubles. If I had to also practice singles, I don't even think my body could handle that.
Paar nädalat tagasi lõppes Ingridil ligi aasta kestnud koostöö ühe Prantsuse mängijaga ning hetkel tal alalist paarismängu partnerit ei olegi. Küll aga kokkulepped tulevasteks nädalateks erinevate mängijatega, kellest tuntuim austraallanna Astra Sharma. Õige paarismängija leidmine on Ingridi sõnul tõsine väljakutse.
Yeah, that is a big obstacle because, and everyone understands, like, it's doubles players know and singles players know too, that like singles, there's more, there's the priority, it's what people care about, it's the more, you know, glory. And so let's say a singles player, you know, when you sign with a singles player, you ask to play with a singles player, or you decide to, you know, in the back of your mind, there's always this, like, if they get a little injured, you know, the doubles is going to be they're probably not going to play, or are they going to choose a different tournament based on what they get into singles? So that's it's a point of, I would say, like, strategy, because you have to know the person a bit, how, you know, committed they are to sticking with playing with you, even if it's just one event, you know, and are they gonna suddenly like move to another tournament? That's why it's obviously preferable to go with a doubles player, because you know really like where their focus is and they're fully in it, you know. It's like they want it just as much as you do, whereas the singles players, it can be questionable sometimes. And look, if I was still playing singles, you know, you physically sometimes have to make a choice, and that unfortunately there's another person involved that you end up disappointing. But as a doubles player, you know going into it, you're taking a risk, depending on who you choose or who you ask.
Järgnevalt küsisin Ingrid Neelilt, millised eesmärgid, olgu siis edetabeli või tulemuse põhised, ta endale selleks hooajaks on püstitanud?
I would like to, by the end of the year, I would like to be close to 50. And the thing is, with like 1 or 2, 3 like kind of bigger results, let's say in an international, it's a 250 level, like finals, or maybe a title, and then you win a couple rounds at a 500, it can happen very quickly. And playing, you know, these tournaments consistently for a while, I do feel like I'm there. I just need to, you know, I need to capitalize and keep going, because it's a no ad scoring with a 10-point tiebreaker. So many times, you know, you feel like, oh, that was a match I could have won. That could have changed my ranking by a large extent. But if it's like, first and foremost is like, you know, being the player that I want to be, and other people will see that. Like, searching for a partner is also, you know, it's very necessary, and there's a art to that, and some people are very good at it. Maybe others, you know, aren't as ranked as high because they're not as forceful with that. But I think that, like, if I make myself into a player that people want to play with, and a person they see like, wow, like I want to choose her, that's like also a big indication, and then the ranking will follow, I truly believe.
Uurisin veel Ingridilt, kas sel tasemel, kus ta praegu paarismängus asub, on võimalik end tennisega ka ära elatada.
So, for example, I got into this year like 2 big tournaments, like Australia and Miami, and that helps a good amount. I wouldn't say that helps me like stay probably like break even. And depending on, let's see, we have Roland Garros, we have Wimbledon, we have US Open, maybe 3 more big events possible. That would maybe help me get into like the pluses a little bit, but if I don't get into those, I'm probably losing money. However, if I'm still like, if my ranking's like climbing a little bit, or if I'm improving, like I feel like it's an investment. So for a little while, you know, you take some loss, but you ultimately, like, I'm going to get to the point where I can make a living. I would say top 50 is really where that's at, because then you get into the premieres, you get into the slams, and if you worst case lose first round in all those tournaments, you're making about $80,000 a year for doubles. So it at least that sustains, you know, the life. But obviously with even making some big results there, you can do pretty well. You might not be able to take like a full-time, you know, coach, and you might not have a lot of money after tennis that you're like, you know, able to retire and not work. But I still think that there's so many, you know, upsides, and I want to be doing this, and to make enough money to be able to continue is really, you know, where I'm at right now, because I'm so close that I'm not going to be stopping anytime soon, because, you know, I'm like a little bit, you know, not making where I am successful, let's say.
Lõpetuseks rääkisime Ingridiga ka veidi teistest Eesti naismängijatest. Täpsemalt küsisin, kui palju ta Anett Kontaveiti ja Kaia Kanepi tegemisi tuuri peal jälgib. Tuleb välja, et päris palju.
Well, it's hard not to follow Anett because I think every week there's something major that she's doing, you know? So for sure, her and Kaya's doing, I mean, almost as well as she's ever been doing, and she's gosh, and it's like she hasn't, you know, aged at all. So she's still at her peak. So it's really those two, I would say. I asked how the team did in the Fed Cup in this last week.
Very good.
But apparently they're in need of a doubles player, because they lost it, you know, like the deciding ones there. So hopefully that's where I come in, and I can really make the difference, which would be amazing. But I think my only regret is not, you know, being able to switch sooner and playing this year. But it'll happen.
Selline oli siis minu intervjuu peagi Eesti lipu all mängima hakkava Ingrid Neeliga. Kes teab, äkki järgmine kord vestleme matšpalli podcastis temaga juba eesti keeles. Aitäh kuulamast ja järgmise korrani!
Matšpalli pani mängu Unibet. Mängijatelt mängijatele.